It is Wednesday, February 19th, 2020, and you are tuned into DIRTRACKR Daily. I'm Justin Fiedler. A couple of news items to get to here, kind of right off the top. A couple of things I saw yesterday as I was clicking around in the dirt racing universe on the interwebs. AGCO returning as the sponsor of the AGCO Jackson Nationals in 2020. AGCO, in case you don't know what they do, but they provide agricultural solutions to farmers, and they own brands like Challenger, Fendt, GSI, Massey Ferguson, and Valtra. They are jumping on again this year to be sponsored. This year, the payments or the purse went up for the Jackson Nationals. It pays $100,000 to win on Saturday night at the Jackson Nationals with $3,000 to start. So pretty great news there, continuing to come out of the Jackson Motorplex. Lots of good stuff going on up there. Doug Johnson and the guys doing a great job at Jackson. I saw there was an interesting piece. Jacob Seelman is kind of the... He's kind of a jack of all trades, covering motorsports. I saw Jacob running around the truck garage Friday night in Daytona. He announces at Millbridge. He writes for Speed Sport. He was on Chili Bowl coverage. Jacob is everywhere. So if you don't know anything about Jacob, go hunt him down. He has a very active Twitter account also. So Jacob Seelman, Seelman. But Jacob had a piece on SpeedSport.com about Christopher Bell. We would normally see Bell run, some nights at Evolution, things like that in the sprint car, kind of leading up to the NASCAR weekend. But we didn't see that this year. And Jacob actually tracked down Bell to ask him about that. And he said in this piece on speedsport.com that Bell had originally planned to run some of those sprint car nights leading up to the Daytona 500, including racing some nights at Volusia and some nights at East Bay, where the All-Stars were on Monday and Tuesday, but decided to skip it to focus on his first Cup start. He told Jacob he is going to return to some dirt racing stuff later in the spring, but wanted to just kind of focus on his Cup debut. He went down to New Zealand, I believe, and ended up coming back early from that trip as well. Had a crash, and I think just decided that he didn't want to risk it leading up to this season. So interesting to see Bell kind of make that decision. As somebody who has talked to Bell a few different times, and we've had him on Open Red and things like that, and he's pretty good buddies with Ross, who I host Open Red with. Kind of knowing where he is with dirt racing, it's obviously something that's very important to him. So interesting to see him kind of make that decision to skip some of those races and focus on that NASCAR stuff. So he actually had a really great running going in the 500 and got caught up in one of those late crashes. But excited to see what Christopher is able to do this year in that Cup car. Lots of backing from Toyota and Gibbs, so they'll have good equipment here going forward. And now that we're going to get kind of into some more driver racetracks, this weekend obviously at Las Vegas is going to be kind of that first big test for him. It'll be interesting to see what he does. I want to mention the Central Pennsylvania Sprint Car season kicks off this weekend with the Icebreaker 30 on Saturday at Lincoln Speedway. I think you'll see a good number of those Pennsylvania regulars show up for some 410 racing on Saturday there. Plus, we know Shark Racing, Logan Schuchart, Jacob Allen, they got permission. They are going to be there. If you cannot be there, you can watch it live on Speed Shift. They will have coverage on Saturday, like I said, February 22nd. I know Keller Auto Speedway gets underway this weekend as well. They have 360 action. New owner, new promoter there, Peter Murphy. Sounds like people are excited out there to check out what he's got going on at Hanford there. So check that out this weekend as well. 360 action at Keller, I believe, on February 22nd as well. I've seen some discussion and some talk again. I feel like this kind of bubbles up periodically, this kind of discussion of the World of Outlaws kind of full-time drivers situation and what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do and that kind of thing. And so I kind of put some notes together. I want to talk a little bit about what World Racing Group, what the World of Outlaws refer to as kind of platinum and gold drivers. And the rules are a little different between the Sprint Car Series and the Late Model Series, but the way it works with full-time drivers for those series is those drivers, they sign an agreement to basically say, okay, I'm going to run full-time, and then in doing so, they get benefits. They get tow money, they get provisionals throughout the season, they get some pit passes, and there's some other benefits in there as well. But in doing so, then there are some certain restrictions and things like that for some of those drivers. So the Sprint Car Platinum teams, and Platinum and Gold is just what they refer to those full-time drivers as that have signed those agreements. You'll kind of see that term bandied about a little bit, but The sprint car drivers are limited to only running World of Outlaws races through the season, and they must get permission from series officials to race any non-sanctioned races. So, like I just mentioned, Logan and Jacob are going to run the Icebreaker 30 at Lincoln Speedway this weekend. They would have had to have asked in advance to get permission to go run that race. The late model series drivers, they don't have that same restriction. Obviously, not as many races on the late model schedule. Sprint cars, you're somewhere in the 70s to 80s, usually season to season. Late models are, down in the 50s. Plus, there's a lot more kind of bigger late model shows, things like the Dream, the World, and a lot of crossover between Lucas and the World of Outlaws. So they don't have that same restriction, but that restriction for sprint car drivers has been in place for a really long time. And if you ask World of Outlaws officials about it, that it's something they use to protect the brand and kind of help out and protect the racing. You can imagine if all of those World of Outlaws drivers showed up to a random racetrack, maybe the night before a big World of Outlaws show, that kind of takes some of that, how special those World of Outlaws races and how meaningful those World of Outlaws races kind of take some of that away if those guys are showing up other places and racing. And I know, you'll hear the criticism of like, oh, what happened to the days of actual outlaws and running, just up against the best locals every week and this and that. And it's like, yeah, that was a thing. And there's still guys that do that. And you're going to see that this year. And you see that every year, the Tim Schafers of the world. And this year, guys like Ian Madsen and Brent Marks are going to run schedules like that, which, if that's what you want to run, great. But to the point that you sign up and sign on that dotted line to be a platinum driver for the World of Outlaws, like this is what you're accepting as the rules. And it's not a secret. Everybody knows what that means. But again, in addition for having to kind of live under those restrictions, there's lots of benefits. So, obviously one of those things is tow money, for example. So every race you show up to, you're guaranteed, before you collect any prize money on the night, you're guaranteed a certain amount of money just to roll your truck in the gate. And so for both the Sprint Car Series and Late Model Series, that tow money is tiered kind of based on your status. If you're the series champion, somebody who's been out there for a while, you're going to get a little bit more money. And if you're a new team just coming out, you're going to get a little bit less money. And you're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 to $600 or $700 on a nightly basis, depending on status and series. So obviously that's a big help throughout the year. If you talk about 60, 70 race nights over the course of the year, multiply that by $500, say for example, like that's a significant amount of money to help you get up and down the road. And that doesn't include sponsorship. That doesn't include any prize money or things like that you earn throughout the season. So platinum drivers they also have access to provisionals throughout the season. We talked there was some discussion about this at Volusia, because you have guys that at certain events throughout the season. Volusia is one, and I believe World Finals is another one, where the platinum drivers basically have unlimited provisionals. So if they don't make the feature on a nightly basis, they can use one of their provisionals, get into the feature, and they're good. But somebody, for example, like Mason Daniel on the Sprint Car Series, who is a rookie this season, he's not technically a platinum driver yet. They refer to him as a gold driver because he didn't race full-time last season, because he's new this year. He gets a lot of those benefits, but not quite to that level. So he only has a couple of provisionals available to him until the summertime. And they say your platinum status when you're a gold driver doesn't start till after the 5th night of racing on the season. So once he gets past that 5th night, then he'll get full platinum status through the remainder of the season. And obviously that's a way to just, make sure that guys aren't saying they're going to be a platinum driver for, one event to get whatever benefits and then drop out after that. Just a little way to kind of protect that a little bit. But anyway, so they have access to those provisionals throughout the season, which helps them get into some shows. And then they can also earn, there are extenuating circumstances, things like injuries or hardship or things like that, where the series will still award you a certain amount of points, even if you don't show up to a race. So, if you call and say, hey, I got hurt last week, I'm not going to be able to be there, tonight or something like that, you can still get some show up points and just try to kind of help keep yourself up in there a little bit. Obviously, it's not going to hurt you as badly if you don't show up to a race, if you have extenuating circumstances and you are a platinum driver. And then also, besides things like prize and tow money that you get, full-time platinum drivers are also eligible for the championship payout at the season's end. Just to kind of give you an idea about how much money that is, Brad Sweet and Casey Kane Racing got $150,000 for winning the Sprint Car Series championship. And then obviously it drops down as you go down the places. Jason Sides, who was 13th, he was the bottom finishing platinum driver. He got $14,000 at the end of the season. On the late model side, Brandon Shepard and the Rocket team got $100,000, and then Blake Spencer, who finished 10th at the very bottom, he got $20,000. So obviously, still a ton of money there on the line. Not just tow money, not just prize money, but then obviously at the end of the season, getting that big check, obviously helps out and is able to provide more money and have a nice purse or a nice kind of bucket of money available at the end of the season too, to help those teams and those drivers out for achieving all season. And then, I just had the notes there about the platinum and the gold status. I wanted to kind of take a look at too some other series and just kind of see what they had broken down. I couldn't find a newer or current Lucas late model rulebook. They have the 2018 rulebook is available on the site, so that's kind of what I'm going off of here. But the 2018 rulebook, to be able to get some of the same benefits on that side, you only have to compete in 80% of series events during a season to earn championship awards. And then appearance money is paid to the top 12 in points at each event. So a little bit different way to kind of do things, obviously not having necessarily a signed agreement, but, kind of something similar where you kind of have to have some status and be in that top 12 in points to be able to earn some of those benefits. So not surprising there as well, just a little bit different way to do things, and kind of again provide teams an opportunity to get support and to earn some extra money to help them get up and down the road. And obviously, what do they say about racing? If you want to make a small fortune in racing, start with a big one. So, it's a good thing there are still, drivers and teams out there who are willing to do this on a nightly and a yearly basis, because incredibly difficult to make money out there on the road, no matter how much you win or don't win over the course of a season. But one of the other things that seems to one of the other kind of topics around this, or one of the other discussions that ends up popping up when we start talking about full-time drivers, is how come there aren't more full-time drivers? And you see, like, oftentimes the sprint car series, for example, even the late model series, you'll have 10, 12, kind of 14 guys. You don't usually see more guys on top of that will run full time. And the reason for that is just, pure economics. When there's only, for example, 24 cars making a field, if you show up and you get, 15, 20 local regional guys to battle against those, those full-time outlaw drivers, there's going to be less spots obviously available. And, if you're not making features on a nightly basis, that's a lot less money that you're going to be making. So it's obviously a lot more difficult for some of those teams a little further down the line to make a season work financially. Once you kind of get past those numbers, which is why you kind of see that kind of 12-ish number seems to be kind of like the sweet spot for guys to be able to be out there and to make enough money for it to work and for it to be viable throughout the season. So, you're never going to see 40 full-time World of Outlaws drivers, sprint cars or late models or any other series really for that matter, because the numbers just don't work out that way. It's just too difficult on a night-to-night basis to make the money work. So it's not a knock against the series. It's not a knock against the drivers. It's just the nature of the beast and the amount of spots that are available on a nightly basis. That's just what it's going to be. Don't be surprised when you see something like that where you have 12 full-time drivers. But those 12 full-time drivers, they're going to be some serious players, some heavy hitters, and that's what you end up with, the Brandon Shepards and the the guys we have this year, Scott Bloomquist and Chris Madden on the Outlaw side and on the late model side, and Brad Sweets and Donnie Schatzes and Darren Pittmans and some of those guys on the sprint car side. You're going to get those top guys are going to show up on a night-to-night basis because it works out for them. But yeah, so I wanted to kind of cover over that as a little bit of a primer here as the season gets going and kind of refresh or maybe show you something you didn't know about the way those kind of platinum agreements and things like that work for these teams and kind of some of the economics that are at stake here, and why some of these teams do things the way they do. But and some of the other things that are available to these teams, things like insurance, if you get hurt at a racetrack, things like that, there's that stuff. And then obviously, full rules packages and all kinds of other, marketing support and social media help and all these other things that, are available to the drivers if they need it, from the company, from a company like World Racing Group. Obviously, we try to help out the teams as much as we can, on that side of it. So, quick update. I spent some time last night. I had gotten away from it, life kind of getting in the way a little bit here lately, but worked a little bit more on the analytics section at DIRTRACKR.com last night. I went ahead and added, I had tried to do this a few weeks ago, but got kind of hung up in my code, but added some season-specific stat pages. So right now, if you open the analytics page at the top, I have links for 2020, 2019, and 2018, where you can kind of get those basic rundowns, wins, top fives, top tens, average finish for each of those seasons. And I've got the full 2019 calendar of World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series races are in there. I have the first 3 races of 2020 in there, and then I'm going to go back through and now start backfilling what other seasons I can find. So I put the 2 World Finals shows from 2018 are in there, and as I get going here, I need to make a few adjustments to some things to get some of those 2018 races in, so I'll be working on that. So it might be a little slow at first getting those 2018 races in, and then they'll kind of come in big chunks as I'm able to add races quicker once I get some of my code worked out. But continuing to add races and then continuing to kind of build out some more of those stats and analytics and things like that will be there. So keep an eye on that. Get a quick check of the Dirt Tracker pay-per-view schedule for tonight. Texas Motor Speedway again for the Lone Star Stock Car Tour. That will be live on Speed Shift. So if you are looking for something to watch tonight, go check out Speed Shift. Appreciate you tuning in today. You can find Dirt Tracker Daily on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or where you get podcasts. Please subscribe, leave me a review, and tell your friends. You can watch the show on YouTube and Facebook as well. I appreciate everybody that's been subscribing to the YouTube channel and checking out on Facebook. Helps me out a lot. You can follow along with Dirt Tracker, facebook.com/DirtTracker, twitter.com/DirtTracker, or the website itself, DirtTracker.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Justin_Fiedler, and you can sign up for the Dirt Tracker weekly newsletter on DirtTracker.com. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow.